I'm 34 now, but this happened when I was 29, during the fall of 2020. At the time, I worked as an assistant manager at a small hardware store in a quiet Midwestern town with a population just under 6,000. It's the kind of place where people wave even if they don't know you, where stores close early, and where nothing ever really happens. I moved there after a breakup, looking for something slower and quieter. I've always been introverted, routine-oriented, and honestly a little boring. I liked it that way. I rented a small duplex on the edge of town, backed up against a line of trees that separated the residential area from farmland. My life revolved around work, grocery runs, and late-night drives when I couldn't sleep. That night was one of those nights. It was a Thursday. I remember because garbage pickup was the next morning. I got off work at 8:30 p.m., drove home, reheated leftovers, and sat on the couch scrolling through my phone. Around 10:45, I realized I'd forgotten to buy cat litter. The only place still open was a 24-hour gas station about 10 minutes away on a mostly empty state road. That gas station was practically a landmark. Everyone in town had been there at least once. It felt safe, familiar, predictable. I put on a hoodie, grabbed my keys, and didn't think twice about leaving the house. The drive there was uneventful, the way drives in small towns always are. No traffic, no noise except my tires on the road and the low hum of the engine. The radio was playing quietly, some talk show I wasn't really listening to. Cornfields stretched out on both sides of the road, dark and flat, broken occasionally by an old barn or a farmhouse with a single porch light on. When I pulled into the gas station, there were only 2 cars in the lot. One was parked near the pumps, empty. The other was closer to the building, engine running. I didn't think much of it. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed softly. The shelves were half-stocked, the floor slightly sticky like every gas station floor ever. The cashier was a guy I recognized, late teens, always bored, always chewing gum. He nodded at me, but didn't say anything. I grabbed the cat litter, a bottle of water, and a candy bar I didn't need. I remember checking my phone while waiting in line, annoyed at a text from my boss about scheduling. Normal stuff. Boring stuff. When I paid, the cashier finally spoke. "Cold out there," he said, not looking up. "Yeah," I replied. "Feels like winter already." He nodded, handed me my receipt, and that was it. I walked back outside, breathing in the cold air, feeling that familiar sense of relief you get after finishing a pointless errand. As I unlocked my car, I noticed the engine-running vehicle was still there. A dark-colored SUV. The windows were tinted. I couldn't see anyone inside. Again, I didn't think much of it. I got in my car, started the engine, and pulled out of the lot. I noticed the SUV pulled out right after me. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid. It was late. There were only so many directions to go, but as I drove, I realized we were taking every turn together. Out of the gas station, onto the state road, then onto the smaller county road that led toward my side of town. The headlights behind me stayed at a steady distance, not tailgating, not falling back, just there. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe they live nearby. Maybe they're just heading home. Still, I felt that small tightening in my chest you get when something feels off, but you don't want to admit it. I slowed down slightly to see if they'd pass me. They slowed down too. I sped up, then turned onto a residential street earlier than I normally would just to test it. The SUV turned as well. That's when I really started paying attention. The town was dead quiet. No porch lights, no pedestrians, Just rows of dark houses and the dull orange glow of street lamps. I could hear my own breathing, louder than it should have been. I made another unnecessary turn, then another. Every time the SUV followed. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly my fingers hurt. I told myself not to panic. Don't jump to conclusions. Don't do anything stupid. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The SUV turned off its headlights. It didn't speed up. It didn't fall back. It just disappeared into the darkness behind me, still close enough that I could sense it. I considered calling someone, anyone, but I didn't want to sound ridiculous. I didn't want to admit I might be scared of nothing. I kept driving. I decided not to go home. The idea of pulling into my driveway, boxed in by trees and darkness, made my chest tighten. Instead, I headed toward downtown, thinking maybe if I drove somewhere more public, the SUV would back off. It didn't. At a stop sign, I glanced into my rearview mirror. Even without headlights, I could see the shape of it now, low, wide, unmistakable. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I almost jumped out of my skin. It was just a spam call, but the sudden noise pushed my nerves to the edge. I pulled into a church parking lot, thinking I could loop around and exit from a different side. The SUV followed me in. I stopped my car near the far end of the lot. The SUV stopped about 30 feet behind me. Neither of us moved. The silence was crushing. No engine revs, no doors opening, just the faint ticking sound of my cooling engine and the distant hum of wind through trees. I sat there for what felt like minutes, barely breathing. Then the driver's door of the SUV opened. A man stepped out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark jacket and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. I couldn't see his eyes. He didn't rush. He didn't call out. He just started walking toward my car at an unhurried pace, hands at his sides. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to leave. I slammed the car into reverse and peeled out of the parking lot, tires squealing louder than I meant them to. I didn't look back. I just drove, and once again the SUV followed. I don't remember making the decision to stop. I just remember realizing I was back on my street. I don't know why I went there. Panic does strange things to your sense of logic. I pulled into my driveway, heart hammering, and sat there for half a second, frozen. The SUV stopped at the end of the street. The engine stayed running. I grabbed my phone and keys and ran for my front door. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice before getting the door open. I slammed it behind me and locked it, then stood there in the dark, listening. Through the thin walls, I heard a car door close. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, gravel crunching. Then a knock, not loud, not aggressive. Just a calm, steady knock on my front door. I didn't move. Another knock. "Hey," a man's voice said, low and even. "You dropped something back at the station." I held my breath. I hadn't dropped anything. I knew that. He knew that. "I saw where you live," he continued almost casually. "Just wanted to return it." My legs felt weak. I leaned against the wall to keep from sliding down. "I can see your lights," he said softly. I realized then I'd left the kitchen light on. There was a pause, long enough that I wondered if he'd left. Then he laughed, a short, quiet sound. "All right," he said. "Maybe next time." Footsteps retreated. A car door opened. The engine revved. I didn't move until I heard the SUV drive away. I called the police once. I could feel my hands again. They arrived 20 minutes later, took a report, drove around the area. They didn't find anything. The officer asked if I might have misinterpreted the situation. I didn't sleep that night. For weeks afterward, I jumped at every sound. I checked my locks obsessively. I avoided driving at night. I stopped going to that gas station entirely. Nothing else happened. No break-ins, no strange notes, no sightings of the SUV. That somehow made it worse, because there was no explanation, no closure, just the knowledge that someone knew where I lived and had chosen to walk away. I moved out of that duplex 3 months later. It's been 5 years now. I live in a bigger city, more noise, more people, less quiet. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that man's voice. Calm, patient, certain. What scares me most isn't what he did. It's how easily he could have done more, and didn't, and I still don't know why.